Good evening, I'm Evelina Leung in Hong Kong and welcome to ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. More than 200 kindergartens and childcare centers are closed for a week as the number of flu cases rack up. Carrie Lam announces a new monthly allowance for people aged between 60 and 64 as she attempts to contain the fallout from the CSSA threshold adjustment. And the arrival of a high-ranking Pyongyang official in Washington fuels speculation of a second Trump-Kim summit. First up tonight, the government has called on 208 kindergartens and childcare centers to suspend classes next week. This comes amid a rapid increase of flu cases at these schools. But experts say there's no need to close all of them just yet. There's growing concern over the flu outbreak. Today, the government called on 208 kindergartens and childcare centers to suspend classes.
The current influenza-like illness outbreak among the kindergarten and the childcare center is at a very high level. After the interdepartmental meeting, it was decided to recommend a 7-day school closure for the kindergarten or childcare center that had an ILI outbreak. I think at the meeting we consider that it is appropriate to have this enhanced measure at the moment to try to interrupt the transmission that had occurred in a particular school.
Schools that are suspended include Yuen Long Lutheran Life Kindergarten. In a statement, the school said that many students have fevers and one has even been hospitalized. It also said the Center for Health Protection has confirmed that there's been an outbreak of flu cases among its students. According to the authorities, the predominant influenza A H1 virus has a bigger impact on children aged 5 or below. However, only less than half of these children have been vaccinated so far. Well, this comes as the hospital authority promised all its staff more overtime bonuses as local hospitals continue to be overwhelmed during the peak flu season. An additional 10% will be added to allowances for 12 weeks, starting from January 28th. The authority said this is aimed at encouraging staff to work harder amid winter flu surge. Admittance rates at hospitals have soared to over 100% in past weeks, and the number is expected to go even higher. Well, to other news now, CSSA recipients aged 60 to 64 will soon get a new monthly allowance of $1,060. This was announced by Chief Executive Carrie Lam today as her team seeks to quell public anger over raising the age threshold for elderly welfare payments. But as Lydia Song reports, not everyone is happy about it.
Will this be enough to end bipartisan anger over an adjustment to elderly welfare payments? Flanked by welfare officials, Chief Executive Carrie Lam today announced an employment support supplement for CSSA recipients aged 60 to 64. These are the people who will be affected by a proposed change that raises the age threshold for elderly CSSA payments from 60 to 65. The new monthly handout will be $1,060, the exact difference between able-bodied adult CSSA rates and elderly rates. It will be handed out to recipients directly without paperwork required. Lam, though, stressed that this doesn't mean she's yielding to pressure.
What I'm saying and confessing today is in the actual implementation and planning, there is room for improvement. And today's announcement are improvement measures to ensure more effective and more compassionate implementation of the policy initiatives. And I will not regard this as backing down or yielding to pressure or being populist.
Her remedy, though, was met with a mixed response. Pro-establishment legislators who initially opposed the change said Lam's latest announcement shows she is listening to the people.
The government has shown her sincerity in solving the problem to ensure that the amount of subsidy obtained by those CSSA recipients will not be decreased because of any new measures.
But the pro-democracy camp remains dissatisfied. They say the affected recipients will still lose special grants such as medical and moving subsidies that are only offered to elderly CSSA recipients.
I think the whole package provided by the government now is an administrative redundancy. The government can just do it simple, restore to the original plan, and let all the elderly 60 years old can be regarded as the elderly to apply for the CSSA, and there is no more problem.
The Democrats were also left fuming after the CE said they were just envious about not being invited to discuss the matter with her yesterday. They blasted Lam for being selective in who to consult. Lydia Song, View TV News.
Two school buses collided in Shau Ma Ping this afternoon, injuring at least 27 people, including 24 kindergarten students, 2 bus nannies and 1 driver. The crash happened at around 1 p.m. on Xiaoming Road. One of the buses crashed into the back of the other. An investigation is now underway into what caused it. The Justice Chief's husband, Otto Poon, has pleaded not guilty to charges over illegal structures at his Chuen Mun mansion. Poon attended the hearing at the Chuen Mun Magistracy this morning. Unauthorized works were found early last year at both his house in Chuen Mun and the one next door belonging to the Justice Chief, Teresa Jiang. The Director of Public Prosecutions last month decided to bring charges against Poon, although his daughter, who is the co-owner of the property, was spared. When asked if he had discussed the case with his wife, the engineer said this is not something that couples need to talk about. Well, a high-ranking North Korean official has arrived in Washington, spurring rumors of a second summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. But as Eve Johnson reports, the envoy's timing could be problematic. That's as Trump's newly unveiled missile defense strategy has labeled Pyongyang an extraordinary threat.
A top North Korean official touched down in Washington on Thursday, feeding speculation that Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump are getting ready to unveil plans for their second summit. A source told Reuters that Kim Yong-chol was set to meet with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and possibly even Trump on Friday. CNN reported that he's carrying a letter from Kim Jong-un. Kim Yong-chol used to be North Korea's spy chief. Today, he's serving as Pyongyang's lead negotiator for talks on scrapping North Korea's nuclear weapons program. And he could have his work cut out for him. He arrived in the U.S. on the same day that Trump unveiled a revamped missile defense strategy, which called North Korea a, quote, extraordinary threat. Trump held his first summit with Kim in Singapore 7 months ago, although critics say he's got little to show for the meeting, with no agreement on how or when North Korea will give up its nuclear arsenal. Trump recently said he'd probably be meeting with Kim again soon, but that there was no rush.
We've really established a very good relationship. A lot of good things are happening. And I never said speed. Look, it's been this way for 80+ years.
He also pointed out that Pyongyang has stopped testing nuclear bombs and missiles. The Washington Post reported that the next Trump-Kim summit will likely be held in March or April.
Well, talking about Donald Trump, he will be staying put in Washington as he grapples with Congress over funding for his border wall with Mexico. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders announced on Thursday that Trump has canceled the U.S. delegation to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland later this month. Gavin Nugare reports.
In the 11th hour, U.S. President Donald Trump has decided to cancel his delegation's trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said the decision to cancel was due to the partial U.S. government shutdown. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo were supposed to lead the U.S. delegation. The news comes after Trump himself pulled out from attending the forum with global economic superpowers just last week as he grapples with Democrats in the U.S. Congress over funding for a border wall. Trump isn't the only one skipping out on the meeting dubbed Globalization 4.0. UK Prime Minister Theresa May and French President Emmanuel Macron are both too busy with the business of Brexit and anti-government unrest, so they too are skipping Davos.
Coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Well, let's start with local and mainland equity markets. The Hang Seng Index added 1.3% to close at 27,090 points. Healthcare and consumer stocks were among the day's top gainers on the HSI. Across the board, the Shanghai Composite Index went up 1.4% to 2,596 points. To the latest in the deepening bilateral dispute between Beijing and Ottawa, China's envoy to Canada has warned there would be repercussions if Huawei is blocked from supplying gear to the country's 5G networks. Canada is currently looking into the security implications, but unlike some allies, hasn't said the telecommunications giant will be banned. Relations between the two countries turned sour last month after Canada arrested Huawei's chief financial officer, Meng Wanzhou. Japanese conglomerate Hitachi has shelved plans for a $20 billion nuclear power plant in the UK. This is seen as a major setback for both countries and puts thousands of jobs, at risk. Our Tokyo correspondent Mayu Yoshida has more.
Well, Hitachi's decision to freeze the UK nuclear project deals a blow to Japan's ambition to export more nuclear technology. Board members say they had doubts on its profitability.
There is no link between this decision and Brexit turmoil at all. We'd like you to understand that Brexit has not influenced our decision.
The Japanese nuclear industry has faced tough opposition at home ever since the Fukushima nuclear crisis 8 years ago turned public opinion against it. It appeared to be a perfect opportunity window for Japan as Britain had been reviving its atomic industry. But Hitachi's decision is a setback for the UK side. Hitachi is the second big Japanese company to back away from the UK nuclear energy industry in recent months following Toshiba. This made it harder for Britain to meet its target to reduce carbon emissions and replace aging nuclear plants. Decisions by the Japanese companies also put thousands of jobs at risk.
Time for a break now, but do stay with us. Up next, Australia reels from the death of an Israeli student. More details later.
A fighter in life.
What you would do if I told you that from now on you were going to be completely blind.
He stumbles.
He was crying.
He falls.
Just seeing Mark falling down, and he landed on a patio in front of us.
But he never gives up. An utterly life-affirming film.
Since going totally blind at the age of 22, Mark Pollock has achieved things many of us can only dream about.
Theatre 96, Unbreakable, the Mark Pollock story. Sunday night at 9:30 on View TV 6. 3 times the excitement. Now TV secures the exclusive broadcast rights for the next 3 seasons of Premier League exclusively. 2019 to 2020, we've got it. 2020 to 2021, we've got it. 2021 to 2022, we've got it. And in Hong Kong for the first time, Now TV brings you 4K Premier League for the next 3 seasons. The Premier League, live and exclusive only on Now TV. Subscribe to Super Sports Pack to enjoy monthly fee waiver plus an Auto iTone. Call us for more details. Invest wisely. Be an expert in risk management. To beat the market, market analysis is crucial. 24K Finance. Channel 96, View TV 6. Keeping you up to date with what goes on around the league. Follow your favorite stars behind the scenes.
Here we go.
And relive some of the greatest moments. NBA action. Every Saturday at 6:30 p.m. on Channel 96 View TV 6. He comes in like a wrecking ball. Meet Laurie Voutier.
Watch your head.
From vintage cars to buckets of old roofing screws, Laurie has found them all. And he knows how to sell them for a quid.
Laurie loves Joe.
Laurie loves Joe.
A treasure hunter from the Britain grime.
Love it.
Demolition Man. Saturday night at 9 on VTV6. From raw materials to finished products.
The world is a better place because of caramel.
Or inspiring details.
There's 700 different condiments here at Beauty Foods.
Wonderful processes.
All natural ingredients that was made with hand.
Get ready to witness the birth of your favorite nibbles. Food Factory, Sunday night at 7:30 on VTV6. Wrestling fever explodes on VTV6 as we bring you action from the WWE Raw. Catch the stars, the drama, the thrills and the spills.
What is going on?
A new episode every week. The WWE Raw. Tonight at 12 midnight on Channel 96 VTV6.
Welcome back. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has expressed his shock and condolences over the killing of an Israeli student in Melbourne. The body of 21-year-old Aya Masawe was found by passers-by on Wednesday near La Trobe University campus where she was studying. It's the second time in 7 months that a young woman's been killed in Melbourne on her way back home at night. She had been there on a study abroad program as part of a degree at Shanghai University. A vigil is being held today on the steps of Melbourne's Parliament House.
Every woman in Australia, every person in Australia should be able to travel home in safety. I can't begin to think of what I could say to her family. I know what I'm thinking about her attacker. I suspect it's the same thing that all other Australians are thinking today.
At least 21 people died and scores were wounded when a car bomb exploded at the police academy in Colombia's capital. While no one has claimed responsibility for the attack so far, it's prompted fears of a return to the country's violent past. Gavino Garay again.
At least 9 people were killed when a car bomb detonated at a police academy in Bogota on Thursday, but so far authorities say no single group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The car slammed into the grounds of the training academy in the south of the capital, and the explosion ripped through the surrounding area, damaging apartment buildings. The Defense Ministry has not said if the casualties were police or civilians. President Ivan Duque, who had been attending a security meeting in Western Colombia, rushed back to the capital. He described the attack as a terrorist act on police. Colombia ratified a peace accord between the government and FARC rebels in late 2016, but the ELN remains active.
At least 3 people have died in Zimbabwe, where security forces led a violent crackdown against anti-government protests this week. More than 100 people were injured. Among the reports emerging in the wake of the protests are claims from doctors who say they have seen evidence of gunshot wounds and dog bites. Lucy Fielder reports.
After 3 days of violent protests, some workers trickled back onto the streets of Zimbabwe on Thursday. But the country is now counting the cost amid indications of a heavy crackdown by security forces. 3 people died in the protests over President Emerson Mnangagwa's failure to yet repair the country's struggling economy. But rights groups, lawyers and witnesses say many more were beaten by soldiers.
Soldiers broke into our house in the middle of the night, destroying property in the process. They took turns to beat us, and our room was full of blood.
Zimbabwean doctors have treated 172 people in private and public hospitals since Monday, some with dog bites. According to the Zimbabwe Association of Doctors for Human Rights, its members attended to 68 people with gunshot wounds, and 17 underwent emergency surgery. In a statement, it said there were cases of seriously injured patients being forcibly taken from hospital to attend court despite the advice of doctors. State broadcaster ZBC said 600 people were detained. Some businesses reopened in Harare on Thursday after a 3-day stay-at-home strike called by Zimbabwe's main labour union ended, though others remained shuttered.
Things are beginning to normalise now, so going to work is the only option. Otherwise, our families will suffer more.
Mnangagwa has promised to revive Zimbabwe.
Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for us all to unite as a nation and grow our economy.
Instead, it's been battered by a dollar shortage that sent inflation rocketing. On Thursday, the statistical agency said inflation hit a new 10-year high in December at just over 42%. That's destroying the value of people's savings and sending the price of basic goods spiralling.
Well, turning to something a bit more lighthearted now. Dog lovers, you'll be barking mad to miss this next one. The American Kennel Club is set to reopen the Museum of the Dog in New York, offering a look at some of the world's best artistic tributes to man's best friend. Angela Moore reports.
Now in Manhattan, man's best friend has an entire museum dedicated to all things dog. The American Kennel Club Museum of the Dog will feature historical and fine art, as well as modern interactive exhibits.
Well, I think you're going to see dogs in every shape, manner, and form, from paintings to sculpture to ceramics and a variety of other things in between. But it's a total immersion in everything dog.
Its first exhibition, titled For the Love of All Things Dog, allows visitors to see a dog's life going back at least 2 centuries.
Dog painting has been a popular subject since the Victorian era. And dogs, because unlike cats, there's just much more variety. The types of jobs they do, the types of things they did. So people painted them in the activities that they pursued. So there was just a lot more interest there.
As for the interactive opportunities, the museum offers a Meet the Breeds touchscreen table where you can learn about each of the 193 AKC recognized breeds and a kiosk that will match your face to the dog breed you most resemble. This is a return to New York City for the museum. While it first opened its doors in New York in 1982, the museum moved to Missouri in 1987. The new AKC Museum of the Dog is set to open to the public on February 8th in Midtown Manhattan.
Time now for sports. Okay, let's start with the latest from the Australian Open as things heat up in the opening Grand Slam of the year. Rafa Nadal comfortably defeated Alex de Minaur in the third round clash. The second seed had complete control during the baseline exchanges, forcing his younger opponent to take greater risks. However, it just wasn't enough, and in the end, de Minaur succumbed to a 6-1, 6-2, and 6-4 defeat. Meanwhile, third seed Roger Federer celebrated his 100th match at the Australian Open today by giving young American Taylor Fritz a center-court schooling. The 37-year-old Swiss is chasing a record 7th Melbourne title and showed his class by winning 6-2, 7-5, 6-2. But it was Federer's son who stole the show during the post-match on-court interview when the cameras showed the 4-year-old playing games with Federer's coach.